What would you do if your husband handed you divorce papers in front of your entire family? Can one complicated secret really destroy everything, even when you believe you're the victim? The answer landed on my doorstep with a lawyer's letter and a room full of shocked faces. The kitchen felt smaller than usual as Ethan stood by the counter, holding his coffee mug with both hands. I could tell, by the way his shoulders tensed, that another conversation was coming. These talks had become routine over the past month, and frankly, I was getting tired of defending myself. "Evie, can we talk about your schedule again?" Ethan's voice was calm, but I heard the underlying tension. He always got like this when he was building up to something. I continued loading the dishwasher, not bothering to look at him. "What about it? I've told you 100 times, work has been crazy. The Henderson project requires overtime." "I know what you said." He set his mug down with a soft clink. "But I called your office yesterday around 7, and they said you'd left at 5:30. My hand stilled on the plate I was holding. This was exactly the kind of paranoid behavior that had been driving me crazy. "Ethan, I don't appreciate you checking up on me like I'm some kind of criminal. It's creepy." "I wasn't checking up. I wanted to see if you needed dinner brought to you." His voice remained steady, which somehow made it worse. "Where were you until 10:30? I turned to face him, crossing my arms. "I was at the office. Maybe whoever answered the phone was wrong. Maybe I was in the bathroom when you called. There are a million explanations that don't involve you acting like a jealous husband." Ethan's dark eyes searched my face. After 12 years of marriage, he could usually read me pretty well, but I'd gotten better at keeping my expression neutral. "Evie, I'm not trying to be controlling. I'm just confused about the inconsistencies." "What inconsistencies?" I snapped. "I work hard to contribute to this family, and instead of being grateful, you're interrogating me." The sound of little feet on the stairs interrupted us. Maya appeared in the doorway, her brown hair messy from sleep, clutching her stuffed elephant. At 7 years old, she had developed an uncanny ability to sense tension between Ethan and me. "Morning, sweetheart," I said, my voice immediately softening. "Want some cereal?" Maya nodded but stayed close to the doorway, her eyes darting between Ethan and me. She'd been doing that a lot lately, watching us like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Ethan moved to pour Maya's orange juice, and I noticed him glance at my phone when it buzzed on the counter. The message preview showed LF and the beginning of a text. "Hope you got home safe last." I quickly grabbed the phone and slipped it into my pocket. "Work stuff," I said casually. But Ethan's expression had changed. The calm mask slipped just enough for me to see the hurt underneath. "Who's LF?" "Liam Forster. He's one of our supply vendors. Honestly, Ethan, do I need to provide you with a contact list of everyone I work with?" "No, but nothing." I poured Maya's cereal with more force than necessary, milk sloshing over the edge of the bowl. "This paranoia has got to stop. It's affecting Maya." As if summoned by her name, Maya looked up from her breakfast. "Are you and Daddy fighting?" "No, honey," I said quickly. "Daddy's just being silly about Mommy's work." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't contradict me in front of Maya. That was one thing I could count on. Ethan would never involve our daughter in our problems. After Maya left for school, Ethan tried again. "Evie, I found something I need to ask you about." He pulled out his phone and showed me a bank statement. There, highlighted in yellow, was a charge from Romano's, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. The date was last Tuesday, the same night I'd told him I was working late. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to look confused rather than caught. "What am I supposed to be looking at?" "This charge, from Romano's, last Tuesday night. You said you were at the office until 10. I studied the screen, buying myself time to think. "Oh, that. I grabbed dinner there before going back to the office. Is that a crime now?" "You had dinner at Romano's alone?" "Yes, Ethan. Sometimes I eat alone. Sometimes I don't feel like McDonald's or a sad desk sandwich." I handed his phone back with a dismissive gesture. "I can't believe you're monitoring our bank account to track my movements." I wasn't monitoring anything. I was paying bills and noticed a $90 dinner charge. $90? I tried to look surprised. That seems high. Maybe they made a mistake. But Ethan was already shaking his head. The receipt shows 2 entrees, 2 drinks, and dessert. The room felt like it was closing in on me. I could feel sweat starting to form at the base of my neck, but I couldn't let Ethan see me crack. Then obviously there was a mistake. I'll call the restaurant and sort it out. Evie. Ethan's voice was quiet now, almost gentle. Just tell me the truth, please. For a moment I almost did. The words were right there, ready to spill out. But then I thought about how Ethan would react, how he'd never understand that what happened with Liam wasn't some sordid affair. It was complicated. Ethan saw everything in black and white, but real life wasn't like that. I am telling you the truth, I said firmly, and I don't appreciate being treated like a suspect in my own home. Ethan stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, I'll drop it. But I could see in his eyes that he wasn't dropping anything. If anything, I'd just made things worse. Sunday brunch at the Willow had been a family tradition for 3 years. The cozy cafe, with its mismatched chairs and local artwork, usually felt like neutral ground where both sides of our family could coexist peacefully. Today, however, the atmosphere felt charged before we even ordered. My mother, Harriet, had claimed the spot next to me, while Ethan's mother, Denise, sat across the table with her arms crossed. My sister Lila was scrolling through her phone, and Ethan's brother Eric was making small talk with Maya about her art class. Ethan sat at the head of the table, quiet and watchful. So, Evadne, Denise said, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she was fishing for information. Ethan mentioned you've been working a lot of overtime lately. I felt Ethan tense beside me, but I smiled brightly. The Henderson project has been consuming my life, but it's good money, and we need it with Maya's school expenses coming up. Of course, dear, my mother chimed in. Evadne has always been such a hard worker. Even in college, she was burning the candle at both ends. Lila looked up from her phone. Remember when you worked 3 jobs that one summer? You were never home. Some people understand the value of hard work, I said, shooting a meaningful glance at Ethan. Others prefer to question every hour you spend away from home. Eric's eyebrows rose slightly. What do you mean? Before Ethan could respond, I launched into my prepared narrative. Ethan has been following me around like a detective lately, checking my work schedule, calling my office, monitoring our bank account. It's honestly creepy. The table went silent except for the clatter of Maya's fork against her plate. She was pushing her pancakes around, no longer eating. That doesn't sound like Ethan, Denise said carefully. Well, it is Ethan, I said with a laugh that sounded forced even to my ears. Yesterday he interrogated me about a dinner charge like I'm some kind of criminal. God forbid I treat myself to a nice meal after working 12 hours. Ethan's voice was calm when he spoke. I just asked about the Romano's charge because it showed 2 meals. And I explained that was obviously a mistake. I turned to address the table. But instead of accepting my explanation, he keeps pushing. It's like he doesn't trust me at all. My mother reached over and patted my hand. Ethan, honey, you need to relax. Evadne works hard for this family. The least you can do is trust her. I want to trust her, Ethan said quietly. But there have been some inconsistencies. Inconsistencies? I interrupted. That's what you call your wife's life now? Inconsistencies? Lila was watching the exchange with growing concern. Maybe we should talk about something else. Maya's here. But I was on a roll now. The sympathy from my mother and the uncomfortable looks from Ethan's family were exactly what I needed. No, it's fine. Maya should know that Mommy works hard, and Daddy sometimes doesn't appreciate it. Evadne, Ethan's voice held a warning. What? It's true. You've been making me feel like a prisoner in my own home, questioning where I go, who I talk to, what I spend money on. It's exhausting. Eric cleared his throat. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, I said firmly. Ethan has trust issues, and instead of working on them, he's decided to make them my problem. Maya's voice was small when she spoke. Mummy, are you and Daddy getting divorced? The question hit the table like a bomb. Everyone froze, and I realized I'd pushed too hard. No, sweetheart, Ethan said gently, reaching over to squeeze Maya's hand. Mummy and Daddy are just having a disagreement. A disagreement about trust and respect, I added, unable to let Ethan have the last word. Denise's expression had shifted from concern to angry. Evadne, I've known my son for 36 years. He's not the jealous type. If he's asking questions, maybe you should ask yourself why. Maybe I should ask myself why, I repeated, my voice rising. Maybe Ethan should ask himself why his wife doesn't feel comfortable coming home anymore. The words hung in the air, and I immediately regretted them. They revealed too much, implied too much. But it was too late to take them back. Ethan's face had gone pale. What does that mean? It means living with someone who doesn't trust you is suffocating, I said, trying to backtrack. It means I'd rather work late than come home to an interrogation. So you admit you've been avoiding coming home, Eric said. I admit that I've been working hard and getting accused of lying for it. Lila set down her phone and looked directly at me. Evie, is there something you want to tell us? The question caught me off guard. My sister's tone was different, not supportive like my mother's, but probing, like she suspected something. There's nothing to tell except that my husband has become paranoid and controlling. Ethan stood up abruptly. I'm going to take Maya to the playground. Good idea, I said. Let the adults talk. After Ethan and Maya left, the conversation became even more tense. Denise leaned forward, her eyes blazing. I don't know what game you're playing, Evadne, but my son is a good man. He doesn't deserve whatever this is. This is me standing up for myself, I shot back. This is you deflecting, Eric said quietly. I've never seen Ethan like this. He's worried sick. My mother jumped to my defense. Ethan has always been too serious. Maybe if he showed Evadne more appreciation instead of suspicion. Mom, stop, Lila said suddenly. Just stop. Everyone turned to look at her. My sister was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. What? I asked. Who have you been texting constantly? Every time I see you, you're on your phone, smiling at messages. And don't say it's work because I know your work face. My blood ran cold. I text lots of people, Leela. I have friends. What friends? You never mention any friends. And yesterday when I called, you were whispering like you didn't want someone to hear you. The table was silent except for the ambient noise of the cafe around us. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for an explanation. I was at work. Of course I was whispering. But Lila was shaking her head. It was Saturday, Evie. My phone buzzed in my purse and everyone's eyes went to it. The sound seemed unnaturally loud in the silence. Aren't you going to check that? Eric asked. It's probably work, I said, but I didn't move to look at it. On Sunday morning? Denise's voice was ice cold. When Ethan and Maya returned, the tension at the table was thick enough to cut. Maya immediately sensed the change and moved closer to Ethan's chair. Everything okay? Ethan asked, looking around the table. Everything's fine, I said quickly. We were just discussing how families should support each other instead of jumping to conclusions. But as we gathered our things to leave, Eric pulled Ethan aside. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw Ethan nod and Eric squeeze his shoulder. Outside the cafe, Ethan was quiet as we walked to the car. Maya was between us, chattering about the playground, but I could feel the weight of unfinished conversations. Ethan, I started, but he held up his hand. Not now, Evie. Not in front of Maya. But I knew that conversation was coming whether I wanted it or not, and I was starting to realize that my family wasn't as firmly in my corner as I'd thought. The office building was eerily quiet at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday. Most of the staff had gone home hours ago, leaving only the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of the cleaning crew. I sat in the small conference room on the third floor, nervously checking my phone every few minutes. Liam was late, which wasn't unusual, but tonight it made me more anxious than normal. Ever since the disastrous family brunch 3 days ago, I felt like I was walking on thin ice. Ethan had been watching me more carefully, and even Lila had been asking pointed questions. When Liam finally appeared in the doorway, I felt the familiar flutter in my stomach that had started this whole mess 6 months ago. At 34, he had the kind of easy confidence that Ethan had lost somewhere in the routine of marriage and fatherhood. His dark hair was slightly messy from the wind, and he was wearing that leather jacket I'd complimented the first time we met. "Sorry I'm late," he said, settling into the chair across from me. "Traffic was brutal." "It's fine," I said, though it wasn't. Every extra minute we spent here increased the risk of someone seeing us together. "We need to talk." Liam's expression shifted slightly. In the months we'd been meeting like this, he'd developed an uncanny ability to read my moods. "What's wrong?" "Ethan's getting suspicious. He found the Romano's charge on our bank statement." "What did you tell him?" "That it was a mistake, that I ate alone. But he's not buying it." I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache building. "He's been checking up on me, calling the office, questioning everything." Liam leaned back in his chair, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. "Maybe we should cool it for a while." "Cool it?" The words hit me like a slap. "What does that mean?" "It means exactly what it sounds like. If your husband is getting suspicious, maybe we should take a break from seeing each other." I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. "Liam, this isn't just some casual thing for me. What we have is real." "I know that," he said, but his tone was careful, measured. "But I also know I don't want to be in the middle of a messy divorce." "Who said anything about divorce?" The word came out sharper than I intended. "Ethan's being paranoid, but that doesn't mean our marriage is over." Liam's eyebrows rose slightly. "Evie, what exactly do you think is going to happen here? You're married with a kid. I'm not looking to be anyone's homewrecker." "You're not wrecking anything," I said quickly. "Ethan and I have problems that have nothing to do with you. He's cold, controlling, emotionally unavailable. He's been pushing me away for years." "And that's terrible," Liam said, "but it's not my problem to fix." I felt tears prick at my eyes. This wasn't how this conversation was supposed to go. "So you're just going to abandon me when I need support the most?" "I'm not abandoning you. I'm being realistic. If your husband is already suspicious, continuing to meet like this is only going to make things worse." "Ethan wants me to block your number," I said, playing what I hoped was my trump card. "He actually asked me to cut off all contact with you." "Maybe you should." The words hung between us like a physical barrier. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Maybe I should," I repeated. "After everything we've shared, everything we've talked about, you think I should just block you because my husband is insecure?" Liam sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Evie, what we have is complicated." "Exactly. It's complicated. It's not black and white like Ethan thinks everything should be. What we have is real, and it matters, and I'm not going to let Ethan's jealousy destroy it." "But what if he's not just jealous? What if he has legitimate concerns?" I felt my anger flare. "Legitimate concerns about what? We're friends, Liam. We talk, we have dinner sometimes, we support each other. Since when is friendship a crime?" "Since it involves lying to your husband about where you are and who you're with." "I only lie because Ethan wouldn't understand. He sees everything as either completely innocent or completely inappropriate. He can't handle nuance." Liam was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. "Evie, do you hear yourself right now?" "What do you mean?" "You're justifying lying to your husband about spending time with another man. You're meeting me in secret, deleting text messages, making up stories about where you've been. How is Ethan supposed to react to that?" I felt like he'd slapped me. "I can't believe you're taking his side." "I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just pointing out that if my girlfriend was doing what you're doing, I'd be suspicious too. Ethan isn't your girlfriend. Ethan is my husband who's supposed to trust me and support me, not interrogate me like a criminal. Even when you're lying to him. I'm not lying about anything important, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, they sounded weak. Liam stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot below. Evie, I think you need to figure out what you want, because this situation isn't sustainable. What I want is for my husband to trust me and for my friend to support me. Apparently that's too much to ask. Your friend, Liam repeated, turning back to face me. Is that really what this is? The question hung in the air between us. We both knew the answer, but neither of us had been willing to say it out loud. What we had wasn't just friendship, but it wasn't quite an affair either. It existed in that grey area that I'd been living in for months. It's complicated, I said finally. Yeah, Liam said softly. It is. My phone buzzed with a text message, and I glanced down to see Ethan's name on the screen. Where are you? Dinner's ready. I have to go, I said, grabbing my purse. Evie, wait. Liam caught my arm as I moved toward the door. I need you to think about what I said, about taking a break. I'm not going to stop talking to you because Ethan is insecure. Even if it saves your marriage, I pulled my arm free. My marriage problems existed long before I met you. Don't flatter yourself into thinking you're the cause. But as I walked to my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was starting to unravel. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I could control the narrative anymore. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and racing thoughts. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd convinced myself that Liam was just scared, that he'd come around once he realized how much our friendship meant to both of us. Ethan was waiting in the kitchen when I walked in, and I could tell immediately that something had changed. He wasn't angry or accusatory like he'd been lately. Instead, he looked sad and tired. How was work? He asked. Long, I said, which wasn't technically a lie. Sorry I'm late. Ethan nodded and handed me a plate of reheated dinner. Maya's already eaten. She's upstairs doing homework. We ate in silence for a few minutes before Ethan spoke again. Evie, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. My stomach clenched, but I kept my expression neutral. Okay. Ethan pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. There, in black and white, were screenshots of text messages between Liam and me. Not the worst ones, but bad enough. Care to explain? Ethan asked quietly. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. How had he gotten these? Had he been monitoring my phone? The violation of privacy was staggering. Ethan, what the hell? Have you been spying on my phone? Answer the question, Evie. No, I will not answer the question. Not until you explain how you got private text messages from my phone. Ethan's jaw tightened. I didn't get them from your phone. Then where... I stopped, realization dawning. Liam sent these to you? No, someone else did. Someone who cares about our family. I felt the world tilt slightly. Someone else had these messages. Who? And how? I don't know what you think you're seeing, I said, falling back on my default defense. But Liam is a friend. We work together. Evie, Ethan's voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. Please, just tell me the truth. But I couldn't, because the truth was complicated, and Ethan had never been good with complicated. The dining room felt like a courtroom as we sat around the table that Thursday evening. Ethan had requested a family meeting, which should have been my first clue that this wasn't going to be a normal dinner conversation. Maya was upstairs, supposedly doing homework, but I suspected Ethan had deliberately timed this for after she'd eaten. Denise and Eric were there, sitting across from my mother and Lila. The battle lines were clearly drawn, and I was sitting at the defendant's table. Ethan sat at the head of the table with a manila folder in front of him. The sight of it made my stomach churn. Whatever was in that folder, I knew it wasn't good for me. Thank you all for coming, Ethan said, his voice eerily calm. I called this meeting because I think everyone deserves to know the truth about what's been happening in our marriage. Ethan, I said quickly, I don't think this is appropriate. Our marriage is between us. Our marriage stopped being just between us when you made it everyone else's business, he replied. When you publicly accused me of being paranoid and controlling. When you made our families choose sides based on lies. My mother leaned forward. Ethan, I understand you're upset, but calling Evadne a liar. Let me finish, Harriet. Ethan opened the folder and pulled out a stack of papers. 3 weeks ago, I started noticing inconsistencies in Evie's schedule. She was coming home late, being secretive about her phone, and there were charges on our bank account that didn't match her stories. We've been through this, I said. I explained about the restaurant charge. You said it was a mistake, that you ate alone. Ethan pulled out a receipt and placed it on the table. This is the actual receipt from Romano's. 2 Caesar salads, 2 chicken marsalas, a bottle of wine, and tiramisu for 2. The server's name is written at the bottom, along with a note that says, "Lovely couple." The room went silent. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, but I forced myself to maintain eye contact with Ethan. That proves nothing. Maybe the server made an assumption. Maybe. Ethan pulled out another paper. This is a statement from the restaurant manager. He remembers you because you and your companion seemed very affectionate. He specifically mentioned that you were holding hands across the table. My face felt hot, but I couldn't back down now. That's ridiculous. Why would a restaurant manager remember one random dinner? Because you made a scene when you were leaving. Apparently, you and your companion were arguing about something, and other diners complained about the noise. Lila was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Evie, what the hell? This is all circumstantial, I said, though my voice sounded weaker than I intended. Ethan is building a case out of nothing because he can't accept that I have a life outside of this house. Ethan pulled out his phone. These are screenshots of text messages between you and Liam Forster, dating back 6 months. He began reading aloud, and each message felt like a physical blow. Can't wait to see you tonight. Ethan's working late again. You make me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. I know this is complicated, but what we have is real. I wish things were different. I wish we could be together without all this secrecy. The room was dead silent except for Ethan's voice reading my most private thoughts aloud. I wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor, and never face any of these people again. Stop, I whispered, but Ethan continued. Last week, Ethan wants me to block your number. I told him it's complicated. He wouldn't understand what we have. Stop, I said louder. Ethan set down his phone and looked at me. Is there anything you'd like to say? I looked around the table at the faces staring back at me. Denise looked disgusted. Eric looked disappointed. My mother looked confused and hurt. Lila looked like she was seeing me for the first time. Those messages are private, I said finally. You had no right to read them. I had no right? Ethan's composure cracked slightly. You're having an affair, and you're worried about your privacy rights. I'm not having an affair. The words came out louder than I intended. Liam and I are friends, close friends. We talk, we support each other, we occasionally have dinner. That doesn't make it an affair. You're lying to your husband, sneaking around, deleting messages, and having romantic dinners with another man, Eric said. What would you call it? I would call it a friendship that my husband is too insecure to handle. Denise slammed her hand on the table, making everyone jump. Are you out of your mind? You're sitting here, caught red-handed, and you're still blaming Ethan. I'm not caught doing anything except having a friend. A friend you're in love with, Lila said quietly. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, Ethan said. You're in love with another man. And instead of dealing with our marriage problems honestly, you decided to sneak around and lie about it. Our marriage problems aren't my fault, I shot back. You've been emotionally distant for years. You never talk to me, never show me affection, never make me feel like I matter. Liam makes me feel valued. So you decided to have an affair instead of talking to me about it? It's not an affair, I was shouting now, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I worried about Maya hearing us. We haven't slept together. We haven't even kissed. We're just friends who understand each other. Ethan pulled out another paper. This is a report from a private investigator. My blood ran cold. You hired a private investigator? After you made me feel crazy for asking simple questions about your whereabouts, yes, I hired someone to find out the truth. He began reading from the report. Subject and Mr. Forster observed entering Riverside Hotel on March 15th at 2:47 p.m. They exited the building at 5:23 p.m. Hotel records show a room was booked under Mr. Forster's name for the afternoon. The room spun around me. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. That's not... We didn't... It's not what you think. What is it then? Ethan's voice was deadly quiet. I couldn't answer, because the truth was that Liam and I had gone to that hotel room, and while we hadn't technically had sex, we'd crossed lines that I couldn't explain away. We'd kissed, we'd touched, we'd talked about what it would be like to be together. It was more than friendship, but less than a full affair, and there was no way to explain that distinction to a room full of people who were already convinced I was lying. We talked, I said weakly. We needed somewhere private to talk. You needed a hotel room to talk? Eric's voice was incredulous. You wouldn't understand. None of you would understand. What Liam and I have is complicated. It's not black and white like you all want it to be. It's complicated because you're married, Lila said. It's complicated because you have a daughter. It's complicated because you're lying to everyone who loves you. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I couldn't stop defending myself. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was lonely, and Ethan was always working or watching TV or doing anything except paying attention to me. Liam listened to me. He cared about what I thought and felt. So you decided to cheat on your husband, Denise said coldly. I didn't cheat. We never had sex. We never even... I stopped, realizing that anything I said would only make things worse. Ethan was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, but something like pity mixed with disgust. Evie, do you hear yourself? You're sitting here, caught in lie after lie, and you're still trying to convince us that you're the victim. I am a victim, I said desperately. I'm a victim of a marriage that stopped working years ago. I'm a victim of a husband who took me for granted. I'm a victim of a family that's ready to crucify me for finding a little happiness. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Ethan spoke. I've contacted a lawyer. The words hit me like a physical blow. Ethan, no. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can... I'm done, Evie. I'm done with the lies, done with the manipulation, done with being made to feel crazy for trusting my instincts. What about Maya? I asked desperately. What about her? You should have thought about Maya before you decided to blow up our family. I didn't blow up anything. You're the one who hired private investigators and called family meetings, and I'm the one who found out the truth, Ethan said quietly. The truth you were never going to tell me. My mother finally spoke up. Ethan, maybe you're being hasty. Marriage is complicated and... No, Harriet, marriage isn't that complicated. You don't lie to your spouse. You don't sneak around with other people. You don't gaslight your partner when they ask reasonable questions. I never gaslighted you, I protested. Ethan laughed, but there was no humor in it. You made me feel paranoid for noticing that you were lying. You accused me of being controlling for asking where you were. You told our families that I was the problem, that I was jealous and insecure. That's textbook gaslighting, Evie. I looked around the table one more time, hoping to find an ally, someone who would understand my side of the story. But all I saw were disappointed faces and closed expressions. Fine, I said, standing up abruptly. You all want to paint me as the villain? Fine. But don't pretend this marriage was perfect before Liam came along. Don't pretend Ethan was a perfect husband who didn't contribute to our problems. No one's saying Ethan is perfect, Lila said quietly. But he didn't cheat. Neither did I screamed, finally losing all control. I found someone who cared about me, someone who made me feel alive again. I'm sorry that threatens all of you, but I'm not sorry it happened. Ethan stood up and walked to the bottom of the stairs. Maya, he called, can you come down here, please? Ethan, no, I said quickly. Don't involve her in this. She's already involved, Evie. She's been watching us fight for months. She deserves to know why. Maya appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale and her eyes wide. She'd obviously been listening. Maya, sweetheart, Ethan said gently. Mommy and I are going to be living in different houses for a while. Because Mommy has a boyfriend? Maya asked in a small voice. The question hung in the air like an accusation, out of the mouths of babes. I knelt down to Maya's level, desperate to explain. Sweetie, it's not like that. Mommy has a friend, and Daddy doesn't understand. Stop, Ethan said firmly. Just stop lying, even to her. I looked at my daughter's confused face and realized that I'd lost everything. My marriage, my family's respect, and now my daughter's innocence. I need some air, I said, and walked out of the house without looking back. The coffee shop near Maya's school had become my refuge over the past week. It was neutral territory where I could sit with my laptop and pretend to work while actually scrolling through social media and watching my life implode in real time. The other parents had started treating me differently. Not openly hostile, but there was a coolness that hadn't been there before. Conversation stopped when I approached. Invitations to playdates dried up. The school pickup line had become a gauntlet of whispered conversations and sideways glances. I'd tried to control the narrative by posting carefully crafted messages on Facebook about the challenges of marriage and the importance of following your heart, but they'd backfired spectacularly. Instead of sympathy, I'd gotten comments like, "What about your daughter?" and "Some of us managed to stay faithful." I deleted most of them, but the damage was done. Liam had been avoiding my calls since the family meeting 3 days ago. He'd sent one text, "I think we should take that break we talked about." When I'd responded with a long message about how I needed his support now more than ever, he'd left me on read. My phone buzzed with a call from my sister. I'd been avoiding Lila since she'd walked out of the family meeting without saying goodbye, but I was desperate for an ally. "Hey," I answered, trying to sound casual. "We need to talk," Lila said without preamble. "Can you meet me at my apartment?" "I'm at the coffee shop near Maya's school. Can you come here?" "No. This conversation needs to happen in private." The drive to Lila's apartment felt like driving to my own execution. My sister lived in a trendy downtown loft that usually felt warm and welcoming. Today, it felt like a courtroom. Lila was waiting with a cup of tea and a grim expression. She didn't offer me anything to drink. "Sit down, Evie." I perched on the edge of her couch, trying to read her mood. "Look, if this is about the other night—" "This is about the last 6 months," Lila interrupted. "This is about the lies you've been telling everyone, including me." "I never lied to you." Lila pulled out her phone and showed me a screenshot of one of my Facebook posts from 2 weeks ago. You wrote, "When you're married to someone who doesn't appreciate you, sometimes you have to find validation elsewhere." Or self-love, or sure toxic relationships, or know your worth. I remembered the post. I'd written it after a particularly good lunch with Liam, feeling empowered and misunderstood. What about it? You were talking about Ethan. You were publicly humiliating your husband while having an affair. I wasn't having an affair, and I wasn't talking about Ethan specifically. Bullshit, Lila's voice was sharp. Everyone knew exactly what you meant. Ethan's co-workers saw it. Maya's teachers saw it. You were airing your dirty laundry on social media while lying to your family about what was really going on. I felt my defenses rising. I was expressing my feelings. I'm allowed to have feelings. You're allowed to have feelings. You're not allowed to have an affair and then blame everyone else for not understanding. Why does everyone keep calling it an affair? Liam and I never slept together. Leela stared at me for a long moment. Do you really think that matters? You were emotionally cheating on Ethan for months. You were lying, sneaking around, spending money on romantic dinners, meeting in hotel rooms. The fact that you didn't have penetrative sex doesn't make it not cheating. It's more complicated than that. No, it's not, Lila exploded. It's actually very simple. You're married. You developed feelings for another man. Instead of working on your marriage or leaving Ethan honestly, you decided to have your cake and eat it too. That's cheating, Evie. That's what cheating looks like. I felt tears starting to form. You don't understand what my marriage was like. Ethan and I had been growing apart for years. We barely talked. We never went out together. We were like roommates raising a child. So get divorced, go to counseling, have an honest conversation about what you need. Don't sneak around with another man and then act surprised when your husband gets upset about it. I was going to tell him eventually. When? After you left him for Liam? After Maya found out from someone else? When exactly were you planning to be honest? I couldn't answer because I'd never actually planned to tell Ethan. I'd been living in a fantasy where I could have both my marriage and my relationship with Liam, where I could keep everyone happy without having to make hard choices. Liam doesn't even want me now, I said quietly. He's been avoiding my calls since Ethan confronted me. Of course he doesn't want you. You're a married woman with a child and a messy divorce ahead of you. He was having fun with someone else's wife, but he doesn't want to deal with the consequences. The words stung because they were true. Liam had been perfectly happy to meet me in secret, to be the exciting distraction from my boring marriage. But when things got real, when it became clear that there would be actual consequences, he'd disappeared. I thought he cared about me, I whispered. Lila's words cut deep. You weren't in love with Liam. You were in love with escape, the excitement, the feeling desired. Real love doesn't demand lies or betray your child. I cried, admitting loneliness, invisibility in my marriage. Lila was merciless. Talk to Ethan. Be honest. Instead, you chose secrecy. I'm scared, I whispered. You should be. Own it. You had an affair, lied, hurt everyone. Until you stop playing victim, nothing changes. At home, Ethan was cold. Mediation Friday. Stay elsewhere until then. Maya stayed silent, eyes on homework. I begged to explain. He refused. I left for Mom's, glancing back at their peaceful kitchen scene through the window. They looked whole without me, and that truth shattered me more than any argument ever could. The mediation room felt deceptively calm. Soft chairs, abstract art, mediator Patricia's steady voice. Ethan sat opposite with sharp lawyer Rebecca Chen, armed with folders of evidence. My texts with Liam, hotel receipts, PI reports, neglected school records, my own manipulative social media posts. I admitted it quietly. It became an affair. Emotional, then physical. I lied, neglected Maya, put my desires first. Ethan requested primary custody. I got every other weekend visitation. He offered fair asset division, half savings, house equity split, not out of spite, but for Maya's sake. Why so generous? I asked. Because you're still her mother, he said tiredly. I'm protecting her, not punishing you. Liam ghosted with a cold email about fresh starts. I signed the papers, moved to a small apartment, started therapy, faced Maya's hard questions, and began rebuilding trust one honest answer at a time. The divorce ended my lies and forced me to face the truth I'd avoided for months.